Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be taking a look at Da Vinci watercolors. This review has been a long time coming as viewer and patron Victor sent these to me several months ago with those other care packages. I did a little mini palette filling video back when I first received these as he sent me the full tubes of paint, so I was able to squeeze my own palette in a wide range of colors, for which I am extremely grateful for. I've used them in several paintings since then, and I have actually recorded an extensive amount of footage for this video, not all of which will be included, but I do feel like I've spent a lot of hours with these paints, and I feel like I have a pretty decent handle on them. Victor did ask for cupcake swatches, so that's what you're going to be watching here in the first part of the video, but while that's playing, let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about the company itself. Da Vinci is an American company based out of Southern California, which to my surprise makes them even more local to me than M. Graham, which is up in Oregon. Their paint formulas have been in the making for 3 generations, and Da Vinci's oil paint formulas actually originated more than 90 years ago in Italy. The founder, Marcello Dvorak, relocated from Italy to Peru, and in 1975, Marcello's son Rudolph relocated again to Southern California, where he founded the Da Vinci Paint Company, named after the artist and innovator that he and his father admired so much. Rudolph expanded the availability of different mediums that they offered to their customers, including watercolor, gouache, and acrylics, in addition to the original oil paint formulas. As is typical of today's paints, most watercolors at that time were either available in 5 milliliter tubes or 14 or 15 milliliter tubes, and a lot of them were also priced out of range for many artists. So Da Vinci actually set out to create 37 milliliter tubes that were priced similarly to other brands' 14 milliliter tubes, which they still offer today at pretty comparable prices. As for a current pricing reference at the time of recording this video, a 15 milliliter tube of Da Vinci's Ultramarine on Diptyque in the United States is $8.38. Daniel Smith's version of the same pigment is $10.04, and Schmincke's is $15.14. Comparatively, Da Vinci's 37 milliliter tube is just $13.18, making it an extremely affordable brand of paint, and something that I definitely want to think about when I am replacing the staples in my workhorses like ultramarine or burnt sienna. One point of pride for Da Vinci is in 1995 they were the first paint company to offer a permanent alizarin crimson in watercolors as an alternative to the original fugitive pigment. And as far as I know or have personally seen, it's the only one today that is still used from a single PV19 pigment. Now this PV19 is different than any other PV19 I've seen before, which can range from the quinacridone rose to quinacridone red, and even a quinacridone like a violet-y color that's very, very close to a purple. But this one is a really deep, rich red that is very comparable to the original alizarin crimson. According to their website, in 2006, Da Vinci reformulated their watercolors to allow for a 15% increase in pigment capacity and overall better performance. In both their website and in my personal experience, they also do not crack when they're poured into pans, and they re-wet very, very readily. After playing around with these paints for quite some time, I did have some questions for Da Vinci about their paint before compiling information for this video. So I contacted them through their website, and specifically I had questions regarding that in strong concentrations on student-grade water paper, they seem to have this very shiny finish, almost similar to a Gonze Tombi paint or to the American Journeys that I reviewed a couple months back. I'll get into their connection with American Journeys towards the end of the video, but in the meantime, the company quickly replied, stating that the sheen of the watercolors varies because they use, in their words, using quotes, minimal amounts of additives, no fillers, and they process each batch according to the pigment being used. Our formulas and processes revolve around individual pigments and maximize their unique characteristics. So it sounds like some of the pigments are shinier than others, and I also believe that the reason for this is the student grade paper has all the pigments sit at the top of the paper, so highly pigmented colors are not going to seep in like they would on a cotton paper. The email was signed Marcello and was written from the perspective of the current owner. He included some more information saying that they sell their tubes of paint, the technically 5 milliliter, 15 milliliter, and 37 milliliter, and that you can turn all of those tubes into pans because they use a unique formula that allows them to be used in either way. I did mention earlier in the video that you can fill a pan, that they do not crack at all, and that they re-wet extremely readily, so I can confirm that all of that is the same in my experience with these paints. He added a little bit of flavor text there too about the history of the company, saying that he started milling paints himself when he was 12 years old and at nearly 50 years old, and now the owner of the company, he is still behind every formula and often involved with the milling process itself. He did offer to send me a couple more samples for this review, and when they arrived I found that he had sent 6 watercolor tubes, 3 of which were new and not included in Victor's original selection, a really cool little sampler pack, and 3 little tubes of their fluid acrylics, which he said match the colors of their watercolor line, making them really ideal for mixed media projects. I haven't been able to use these yet, but hopefully I can in the future. In the footage that you're watching here, just so you know, I set aside 4 paints thinking that I already had those, but I mistook the Da Vinci Purple for Mauve, which I already had, so that one is new, and I'm excited to be using that as well, since that is a color I use often. I did want to point out that I really enjoy the labeling on the Da Vinci watercolors, and even though it's a really small touch, it's pretty neat that in addition to writing out the pigment number, they also write a description, such as PY42 is a yellow iron oxide carefully dispersed in finest quality of gum natural Arabic. So I thought that was really neat. I haven't seen that on any other brand. I do really like this alizarin gold that they sent me as well. It's a really golden red color, but definitely red, and you'll later see in my painting demonstration that it's absolutely perfect for painting fall colors or apples. I also wanted to take a moment to point out their quinacridone gold because I know a lot of you are interested in that after my color spotlight. And like all other companies, aside from Daniel Smith's original formula, this one is a mixture. However, most mixtures I have found are made using PO48, which is quinacridone burnt orange, and this one instead uses a quinacridone from the red color family instead with a flat, I think it's PY150 for the yellow. This particular version is more of an orangey brown color than a golden color, and it's really pretty but not typically what I would think of for quinacridone gold, so just be aware of that if you're purchasing this color. The other colors that they sent are very, very vivid and bright and not typically colors that I would use, aside from that dioxazine violet, but I do look forward to challenging myself with them in the future. They also included a pamphlet with all of their colors, and it appears like there are 105 colors in the line as well as 6 iridescent colors. The pamphlet includes really good information about the paint properties such as light fastness and staining, but I don't find that the swatches of color are particularly helpful, and some of them really aren't very accurate. That is expected with any type of printed material. They're not going to match to real life, but a larger graded swatch would be more helpful in general for me personally to identify some different qualities of the different colors. If you look at the yellows, they're all pretty close and similar from, the chart here, so I'm not sure which one I would get based on this color sample. Their website does have enlarged versions of these little circular color swatches when you click on each of their individual colors, so that's a little bit more clear, but the accuracy is going to depend on your monitor's color calibration. I do really enjoy this watercolor sampler that they sent. It is a step up from a traditional dot card that's just a piece of paper with the dots of paint on them. This one is molded so that each paint has its own individual little well. It's made from a thick cardstock or a thin cardboard type of material, kind of like an egg crate almost. And if you would like to see a supplemental video of me swatching out more Da Vinci's colors from this sampler, let me know in the comments below and I can go ahead and do that for you. They are available on their website for $6.99, so anyone can go ahead and purchase them if you'd like to see the different qualities of vibrancy and rewettability and just the general color selection that they offer. Along the same lines of sending you on over to their website, Marcelo did want me to share a coupon with you for 10% off your first order at davincipaints.com, which is good through the end of September using the coupon code TRIAL. This is not an affiliates link. I don't get any money from the purchases you make there, but if you'd like to save some money on their already affordable paints, by all means I'd like to share that so that you can go ahead and do that. I myself, I think I'll be picking up some staple colors like I mentioned before, like ultramarine or burnt sienna, so that I have them on hand to use. Of course, I do want to add here that, as always, even though the company offered to send me some supplies for this video is not sponsored by them, and you can always trust that my opinions about these paints are my own. Next, I did a little sample painting of some fruit, primarily to test their practical applications and specifically their glazing properties. Yellows in particular, across any brand of paint, tend to have difficult time glazing on top of each other because they're already so light valued that anything you add on top of one another doesn't really change the overall appearance all that much. However, I am happy to say that the glazing was pretty apparent in this picture. I did add a little bit of the quinacridone gold to the lightest yellow that I had and kind of built up color in that way, and then added some sepia, I believe, for the shadow. But all in all, the glazing did really well. With the apple, I started off with that quinacridone gold yellow mixture that I used for the lemon, and then built colors on top of that using that alizarin gold, which was a really unique color and really very beautiful for this particular subject. Although the mass tones in swatching out the colors, particularly on that student grade paper, were really shiny, they don't seem to have this issue when you're using them in application because the paints are diluted. You're not using them as a thick mass tone on the paper. I assume that if you wanted that effect, you'd probably use a gouache or an acrylic anyway. This demo, just so that you know, is on Aqua B 90-pound paper, and furthermore, I also did the swatches for my typical swatch binder on Arches paper and didn't see the shininess there either, even when they were in full strength. One last thing I wanted to comment on in this video is that after reading a lot of information online, I have found numerous sources saying that it's believed that the American Journey paints from Cheap Joe's are in fact Da Vinci paints rebranded, similarly to how Jackson's house brand is thought to be from Sennelier. Now, I did not ask the company specifically about this, and I didn't come into this with any preconceived notions. Victor did send me the paints for both of these brands, and he did an excellent job at making sure in his own collection that he didn't have any repeating colors between the two sets, which is absolutely great for his personal use and for my personal use in terms of availability for my paintings. However, it's not as helpful in trying to prove or disprove this theory about them being the same pigments, because I don't have a lot to compare apples to apples. There was one definitive overlap in the colors between the two palettes that he sent, and that was Da Vinci's Quinacridone Red and American Journey's Coral Red, which are virtually identical, both in their first wash and their second glaze. I also had 2 dot card samples that another viewer sent me after my Burnt Sienna Spotlight video way back when of both of these brands. They are also very, very difficult to tell apart. There is perhaps slightly more granulation in the Da Vinci sample, but the hue is basically identical, and the granulation could even possibly be chalked up to the fact that these paints are made in small batches, but the difference is so slight that, I mean, when I was trying to decide which one I liked better, I couldn't really, because they're basically the same. Overall, both brands fill a palette really, really well. They have zero cracking, they're super easy to re-wet, they're both a little bit shiny on those student grade papers in mass tone. I did go ahead and test their flow, as I've also heard that American Journey is slightly less active in wet washes, which, I don't know, I guess I found it to be true a little bit for the burnt sienna, but the opposite was true for the red. And quite honestly, this could be due to the fact that there was probably little tiny differences in the amount of water that I used. I tried to get them as even as possible, but of course there's going to be a difference. Just, I'm not a machine, I'm not perfect. Since I didn't have very much overlap in the colors between the two brands, I went ahead and checked for similarities in the pigment blends or formulas between the American Journey paints and the Da Vinci pamphlet that I had on hand with all that pigment information listed. Many of the mixes were comparable, such as gamboge in both brands are the exact two same pigments, and same for the Prussian Blue Green shade in Da Vinci and the Junebug from American Journey. Those are also the same two pigments. However, there were two paints that I couldn't find matches for that are present in American Journey's line, but that I couldn't find in Da Vinci, and that was Reddish Black and Midnight Blue. Now, I don't know how common it is for a company to make specialty mixes for another house brand that includes paint mixtures that they don't themselves offer. I don't know if this is enough to say that the two brands are not the same, or perhaps American Journey requested certain pigment mixtures that Da Vinci didn't offer, but what I am saying is that I just don't know. I didn't find a definitive answer to this question, so I'm not going to take an official stance on it, but what I will say is that these are very, very close in terms of how they handle and how they feel, and that if you wanted to mix and match these brands on one particular palette, their usability and application would perform absolutely very similarly to each other. I think it'd be pretty seamless between the two different brands in terms of how you would use water flow, water control, brushes, all of that other type of stuff. Oh my goodness, that was a lot of information to cover, and I swear that I also had recorded comparison footage with my typical swatch cards and the swatch card binders, comparing them with the different brands that I have, but I am unable to find it right now, and since we've already gone on for quite some time, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. However, if you would like to see that comparison with the other swatch cards, as well as swatching out that sampler I mentioned earlier in the video, let me know in the comments below and I will go ahead and refilm that for you. I can tell you on the whole that Da Vinci's paints are quite transparent, they're very bright, and they're a pleasure to work with. Some colors, like the Arlide Yellow, seem to be a bit flat, but other colors hold their own really, really well, and you can see a fairly accurate representation of that in the cupcake swatches that I did earlier. As is, I hope this review was helpful for everyone watching, as I know there aren't a ton of resources here on YouTube for them, but I did thoroughly enjoy using them. I am looking forward to adding some of them to my permanent palette, such as that Burnt Sienna and the Alizarin Crimson, and those 37 milliliter tubes are such a steal that it's hard to look past them for some of those really, really workhorsey type of pigments that you use a lot of. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a nice big thumbs up or let me know in the comments below. Another thank you to both Victor and Da Vinci for making this review possible. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time.